Hi, I'm Morteza Kordi, and in this tutorial, we are going to learn about try-catch statements in programming. So what is a try-catch block? The try-catch block contains a set of statements where an exception can occur. A try block is always followed by a catch block, which handles the exception that occurs in associated try block. So what does catch block do? A catch block is where the exceptions are handled. A single try block can have several catch blocks associated with it. Different exceptions can be cut in different catch blocks. When an exception occurs in try block, the corresponding catch block that handles that particular exception executes. So why try-catch block? If the code that is error-prone is not wrapped in a try-catch block, the program will automatically shut down as soon as the error is thrown. We should always use try-catch around any code or method that can throw an error. So now let me show you some practical examples, and then it will completely make sense. It is my Kotlin file, and here we have the main function, the starting point of our application. So let's go inside this main function. Let's create a variable named, for example, my integer value. Assignment operator. So we want to get this value from the user input. So we need to say read line. So because the data type of this variable is going to be of type integer, so we need to specify that here. Let's explicitly specify that the data type of our variable is integer. So here the returned value of this readLine method is actually a string optional. So we need to convert this string optional to an integer value. So we need to say dot to int. Okay, but here, because it is optional, we need to unwrap this optional. So we need to say it's called force unwrapping. We need to put two exclamation marks in order to let the compiler know that we are 150% sure that the user is going to assign an integer value. The user is going to actually input an integer value, and we are aware of the exceptions that may occur because of this force unwrapping optional. So now here we need to, I'm going to actually print this value to the console. So let's say println my integer value, but before that let's actually prompt the user before getting the value, before getting this integer value from the user, let's prompt the user to enter an integer value. So let's put a println statement here, println, and let's say two quotes, please enter an integer value. So now let's run the app. So here in the console it says please enter an integer value. So here I am going to enter, for example, number 5, and then if I press on enter key on my keyboard, this value is submitted and the number 5 is actually outputted to the console, right? So let's run the app again. So this time it says please enter an integer value, right? Now I am going to enter a non-integer value. So for example, I want to enter a letter, for example A. If I press on enter key on my keyboard, now it's going actually to show us an error. It says exception in thread main.java.lang.number format exception for input string A. Why? Because this variable, my integer value, needs an integer value, but the user entered a letter, which is a character or a string value. So here it's actually throwing an exception, and the name of this exception is number format exception. That's why we have to use a try-catch block in order to catch these kinds of exceptions. So how we can solve this problem? In order to solve this problem, we can create a try block. So before that, let me tell you that let's run the app again. Here, you need to know that the space character is also a character. It is called a string value. So for example, in the console, we need to enter a value here, right? If I put a space here, if I just press a space key on my keyboard, and if I press an enter key on my keyboard, now the app is going to crash. Why? It says for input string space. So you need to also know that if you actually accidentally put a space here, it's going to show you an error because space character is called a string value. So now, inside this main function, I'm going to put a try block. Just type in here try and then put an opening curly brace followed by a closing curly brace. We need to put the codes that might throw an exception inside this try block. So we know that this println statement is not going to throw an exception. So we are going to cut this println statement and put it before this try block. And we also know that this line of code here in line number 10, this read line exclamation mark dot toInt can throw an error. It is actually an error prone code because the user might enter a string value instead of an integer value. So we need to put this line of code, this special line of code inside this try block. And here, let's also cut this line of code, this print statement here inside this try block because we want to output this value to the console. And here at the end of this try block here, this ending curly brace of this try block is showing us an error. It says expecting catch or finally. So I'll talk more about finally later. For now, we are going to learn about catch block. So we must put the catch block here after the try block. So just type in here catch. Inside the parentheses of this catch block, we need to specify the parameter. So here, let me tell you that we have a exception class. The exception class is the superclass of all exceptions in Kotlin. So if we use the exception class, we can actually catch the exceptions that are the subclass of this exception class. So here, first we need to specify the name of the parameter. So the name is myException, colon, and now we need to specify the data type of this parameter, which is going to be exception. Let's open and close this catch block by using these curly braces. Inside this catch block, we can say myException dot print stack trace. So the print stack trace method is going to output all of the descriptions about the error that is thrown inside the try block. So if inside this try block an error is occurred, the catch block is executed immediately. Okay? If in line number 7 an error is occurred, the program is not going to execute line number 8. Instead, the catch block is going to be executed and some descriptions about the error is going to be outputted to the console. In this way, we can catch this error. So here, let's run the app. Now it says, please enter an integer value. So let's say something. And if I press an enter key on my keyboard in order to submit this value, now you can see these exceptions, these descriptions about the error. It says java.lang.number format exception for input string something. So you can see this print stack trace that is actually outputting these values to the console. We can also print another value to the console. So let me comment out this line of code. I can say inside this catch block, println myException.message. Now let's run the app. So let's enter the value s and then press an enter key on our keyboard, and it says for input string s. So this is the message of this exception. But you can see that the app is not crashed. This is very important. We catched the error by using this TryCatch block. We are going to learn more about TryCatch exceptions later in this course. For now, I just wanted to introduce you to the whole concept of TryCatch block in programming. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.